Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be talking about some more roster transfers and some rumors as well. I just made a video on this topic 2 weeks ago, but we've had a lot of confirmations in the last 2 weeks of which of the rumors are actually coming true, and yeah, a lot of them came true. I guess we have a lot to talk about, even though, again, we sort of talked about it before, but now we can talk about it in a bit of a different light since it's been confirmed. So yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago today, or right around 2 weeks anyways, when I made that last video. So here we are on the transfers page. I think maybe we'll just look at the rumors at the very end, and we'll see what we didn't already talk about on the transfers. So a lot of these are pretty minor. A lot of these are in not the big regions, so we'll sort of skim over these and see what we want to talk about. JLT being dropped from Talon, but we'll be seeing him again. Yas coming back out of retirement, joining Talon, and I think this is a really big change. Again, it's not in one of the big regions, but Yas, if you're not aware, one of the best statistical players of all time, but, you know, asterisk, that's playing in Korea. That's not playing in NA or Europe or Brazil, one of the absolute top regions. You might say he is a weak region farmer, but the stats are really, really impressive nonetheless. Not an absolute ton of success on Damwon, depending on how you look at it, I guess. They are, I think, one of the only APAC teams in history, until maybe recent history, because things are changing a little bit. But before the last year or so, one of the only APAC teams ever to actually look like international contenders. They were one round away from making a grand final. There was an SI where they were really impressive in groups, and then people thought that they might make it all the way to the grand final. They fell short, but still the expectations were really high, and Yas was a big part of that. I remember, I want to say it was maybe Foxay or somebody calling Yas a genius after seeing him play or something. Just some really high praise, and yeah, going over to Talon on the roster being coached by Fabian, and I guess Pengu, I don't know what his influence on the actual roster is, but he's a part of the org anyways. And yeah, so just really cool stuff. So replacing JLT, I don't know if Yas has decent English. I don't know if it'll help with the communication aspect between Fabian and the team, because my understanding is that Fabian would just communicate mostly to one of the players on the roster who had the best English, and then he would communicate it to the rest. So a little bit of a barrier there. I don't know if Yas helps with that at all. But regardless, a ton of experience and a really solid player to switch out for JLT, and I think it's got to be on here somewhere. We'll see JLT again in a minute. And then yeah, Jax going over to FearX. This guy was just on ENCE, and they made a few roster changes, dropped a few players, and it seems like those players found homes. He's going over to FearX to play in the APAC region. I guess he has let me make sure I'm not misremembering. They are Korean, yeah. I guess he speaks Korean well enough that he's able to integrate with the roster, which is really cool. Maybe he'll bring some European influence over there and benefit the region. And yeah, this isn't a real change as far as rosters go, but Beast Coast has now partnered with Cloud9. I don't know if it's for the rest of time or if it's a temporary thing, but they're now, Cloud9 Beast Coast or whatever. They'll be playing under this banner at least for Esports World Cup qualifiers, and then we'll see if they do end up qualifying or not. So same thing with Fettuccini and Froshi for now. And what else do we have here? So this is some T2 stuff. Marmalade, Mute, Beastly, Glowmoji departing this, and at least Marmalade is on a roster playing in E3 quals, but I can't remember if that team ended up making it through or not, or if all of the quals are even completed. Anyways, Damali and Sayora departing D+, being replaced by, partially replaced by JLT. So yeah, leaving Talon, going over to D+. And for a while now, before Talon sort of took over South Korea, seemingly, it was really D+ and Sandbox as the two big teams, or FearX, I guess, as the two big teams. But now let's see if this is enough to benefit D+. Maybe he'll bring some of Fabian's wisdom over from Talon to D+. Then Virtue being dropped from G2, but we'll be seeing him again in a little bit. Hates and Hornetau departing Vivo Keatstars, but I think we'll also be seeing them in a moment. And let's keep scrolling past all the red names with no Liquipedia pages. Titan, the analyst of G2, I think also we'll see him again in a moment. He's on, we'll see. Let's find it before I misspeak. I'm pretty sure I remember which team he goes to. Wizard, also be seeing him again. Iconic, yeah. dropped from SSG officially, replaced by Benjamaster, as you can see here. So we talked about this last time. I think this is a really exciting change, but now it's been fully confirmed. It was basically confirmed before, but now actually confirmed. So really cool stuff. Iconic was just so bad this stage, and maybe they would have given him a break if like he was pretty good on M80 and then it just looked like he had a bad stage, but he wasn't very good on M80 and then he was terrible on SSG for this stage. So they make a big move. Benjamaster becomes available, and that's a really, really scary fragging trio: Benjamaster, J90, and Ashen, with Forrest and Fultz supporting them. A really good looking roster. I've heard a lot of people saying they have really high hopes for this, and I do as well. I think it's at least a cool change, but I'm hoping it's a really impactful change as well. SSG looked like if Iconic was just playing better, or if they had a better player on the roster, that they could have really made things happen in the most recent major. So we'll have to see what they do there. Arthur and Emps depart E1, Blaz going from GK to G2, and Loira going over, it says from none, but it's from Black Dragons, right? Some of these aren't actually connected. They had these listed as separate entries, players being dropped and going to new teams. So yeah, I mean, on paper, it feels like a downgrade going from Virtue and Benjamaster to Blaz and Loira. I guess we'll have to see. Of course, any change that G2 made on paper is sort of a downgrade because they're all world champions, right? Except for Uno. But the other 4 players, they were still world champions, not reigning, but still fairly recent world champions. And so it's time for Blaz to prove himself. You know, he's looked good statistically on a lot of the rosters he's been on, but those rosters haven't had a ton of success, and I think there are some Blaz believers out there and some Blaz doubters. And as for Loira, certainly I don't know as much about him, but if G2 decided to pick him up, he must be an exciting prospect. So I will wait patiently to see the results. I think, again, there are some doubters, but people, when roster changes are made in this community, they just love to jump to conclusions. So we'll have to see. Frenchie going over from ENCE to GK. So yeah, seeing another ENCE player go from ENCE to a whole other region, so Middle East, North Africa, and South Korea being entered by ENCE players. Hat going from Luminosity to Oxygen, so I guess we're waiting to hear who the replacement for Hat is going to be, and yeah, Hat replacing Dream over on Oxygen. I mentioned this last time. They replaced a hard support player in Dream with seemingly not a hard support player in Hat. So restructuring of the team, but that does seem to reflect what the approach that a lot of teams are taking in the current meta. I think it makes sense. Miracle leaving Secret, but he's going over to Keyed Stars, which I guess we'll see. And some other minor stuff. Dexter, Hyper, Benji, Foxay, and Dream playing on a team in E3 quals. I believe they did make it through. So they will be playing in E3, which is cool if you're a fan of some of these players. And a lot of these guys actually played together before. Dexter and Hyper and Benji and Dream have all been on Mirage before, not necessarily all at the same time, but they all have been. And then Foxay and Dream, former teammates over on Oxygen pretty recently. Then we have, again, some more minor stuff. Rheumatic joining Talon. So 2 changes for Talon. They picked up Yas and they picked up Rheumatic or Rheumatic, or however you say this guy's name. I guess a really exciting young gun type of player in South Korea. So, I mean, if you have more information on him, do let me know about it. I hadn't heard about this guy. I don't know if I've ever heard his name before. I saw the roster change, but Fabian said that it is he felt that they were a little bit lacking firepower and that he thought this player would bring them some firepower. Wafer joining Mir or MIR. I assume it's Mir since they're not capitalized, forming sort of a new team, and Blur and Sloth. So some former European players coming over here. Blur, of course, world champion. A little while ago on G2, and Sloth, I think he was a pretty consistently good player. I think when he departed T1, it felt a little bit strange. It didn't feel like it needed to happen. He's been on some various rosters. I always thought he was a pretty solid looking player, so some high hopes there. Miracle and Mr. 6 Outlaw over to Keyed Stars. Hornetow to Black Dragons. He was on Keyed Stars, right? Am I gonna will I find it or will I miss it? I might have already missed it. Maybe I did. I don't really want to control F and go all around the page. Anyways, he's joining Black Dragons. And then Nello, no longer on Wild's playing roster, but now the head coach of Wild. So cool to see Nello stick around. I think he's a bit of a fan favorite. Not in sort of in part because of that big clutch he had a long time ago that people love to play over and over, that like 1v4 on coastline with Gridlock. But it was a cool clutch, and yeah, I just think he's an enjoyed player, and so we'll see how he fares as coach of the team. A lot of changes actually coming out for Wild. Yeah, Benja Master pickup. Alems going from, I guess, retirement or whatever. I don't know if he was actively searching for a team the whole time since he's been on BDS, but yeah, joining Ents. And I don't think it was the case where he absolutely needed to be dropped from BDS because he was terrible. He certainly wasn't spectacular towards the end, but I think, when you get the chance at Use and Solotov, they just jumped on that. And so, yeah, I don't think it was Alem's time, and he'll be absolutely washed on Ents. I think this is something to keep an eye on because we'll have to see. I think Ents certainly wasn't an absolute top looking team, but they did have some really good moments in the previous stage, not least of which beating BDS just in a best of one, but still, they were the only ones able to do that. And what else do we have here? So some other stuff, Baseto and Live going from Elevate Academy over to E1 Sports. Yeah, it's not E1 Esports, it's just E1 Sports. And then, yeah, we have Virtue going over to Secret. I think a lot of people are really happy about this. I sort of said it about Nello, but I think even more so Virtue, a real fan favorite player. Possibly because he's, the most successful Australian player ever. Possibly because, for whatever, for a lot of reasons. Maybe the roles he played and the consistency, but also sometimes flashiness that he brought to that playstyle. I think a lot of people enjoyed, and yeah, we'll have to see what he does on Secret. I think a lot of people think replacing Miracle, it's going to work out really well, and that this is going to elevate Secret from. They did have a really good performance of the last major. They unfortunately, fell a little bit short in playoffs, but they looked like one of the absolute best teams before playoffs. Fantasy and Hates being picked up by Ninjas in Pajamas, so they get rid of Muzi and Wizard, and they bring on Fantasy and Hates. And Wizard, a really supporting kind of player, and then maybe Hates plays some support kind of roles. I'm actually not 100% sure on that, but same thing as Hat replacing Dream, in my mind at least, where they're bringing on not nearly as supporting of a replacement as the player being replaced, if you get my meaning. So yeah, they're taking a more aggressive approach, and we'll see. I guess Cons can just handle all of the main supporting duties is their thinking, and we'll see if this pans out. I think Fantasy maybe not always, a lot of times a very impressive player. On Furia, just for some reason that roster never really panned out, even though a lot of the players actually on that roster have stuck around and played on other teams, Miracle and SDK, etc. Packbull going over to Revan, so another Revan import from Europe. I don't think we'll talk about this too much. Some people probably have strong opinions about this, but I don't really want to talk about it too much. Sort of whatever. I think a lot of people do like Packbull, and they don't like the roster move for him, but we'll see what actually happens there. A bunch of names that I've never seen before in my life. Mr. B is now coaching Daystar. Joe Gore also going over to Daystar, another player that I don't really want to sink my teeth into at the moment. Toski being dropped from Cruelty, and I guess the last big one to talk about, Arthur and Wizard going over to Los. This one is confirmed now. They were also looking at, let's actually just go over to the other page because just a few things to talk about there. Where's it at? I might just have to press the back button here. I'm not sure how to navigate there directly from the page. Anyways, here on the rumors, they were also looking at, it was what, SDK and Live, or at least it was rumored that they were doing so. So I guess maybe they were just looking for 2 players to change out, because I don't remember if you could change 2 or 3 players during this offseason, but I'm pretty sure that was the cap, was either 2 or 3. So they couldn't make 4 changes, talking about Los, but I guess maybe that they never intended to, and that they were just trialing 4 players for 2 spots, and they went with Arthur and Wizard. So that makes the roster of those 2, plus Farias, Legacy, and Sexy Cake. And I think that roster has a lot of potential for, they are a Brazilian roster, but they are playing in North America, don't forget. So yeah, I think certainly I would not be surprised to see these guys not get last place. We'll have to see if any other team takes up that last place spot, but undoubtedly Los was the worst team in North America before, even though, I mean, they were close, I guess, in a lot of those best of ones at the very least, but then even when they went on into qualifiers, they fell pretty short. So this hopefully will elevate them from easily the worst team, and maybe they'll even contend for, a major spot. We'll have to see. So anything else to look at here that maybe let's look at the newest stuff. Any new rumors? Rento going over to Crest, maybe, sort of whatever. And keep in mind, this is the rumor page, but a ton of them have now been confirmed. That's what this green check mark represents. And not a lot of them have been debunked. A lot of them are still potentially in the works, but yeah, I don't think there's really anything else I wanted to talk about here. I mostly just wanted to look at the Los changes, and yeah, I'm just scrolling, making sure there's nothing else. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, I think that pretty well covers it. So those were all the roster changes. I know it's only been 2 weeks since we did the last one, but a ton got confirmed in the last 2 weeks. They wanted to get these announcements out ahead of the Esports World Cup qualifiers, and so I expect more to come. Again, at the very least in North America, we have that Luminosity slot to be filled, and then I don't know if all of the Brazil shuffling has resulted in open spots or if they all got filled, because some players left NIP and some players joined, and same thing with Keyed Stars, and same thing with like Black Dragons, a lot of joining and leaving, so I'm not actually 100% sure which teams still have slots open that haven't been announced, if any. But okay, yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Let me know your thoughts down below. Which of these changes do you hope happened that haven't been confirmed? Which of these changes that did get confirmed are you really excited about, etc., etc. Like and a subscription would be very much appreciated, and I will catch you guys in the next video.